The Galactic Unity Academy sat high on a quiet moon, its wide halls filled with students from dozens of worlds. Sunlight came through tall, clear windows and lit up the main lecture room. Inside, rows of seats rose in a half circle. Some seats were low and soft for small creatures. Others were strong and wide for big ones. The air smelled of clean metal and faint alien plants. Professor Lyra Voss stood at the front. She was a Velari, tall and thin with soft gray fur that covered her body. Her large dark eyes looked kind, and her long ears moved gently when she spoke. Everyone liked her because she never shouted. She always tried to explain things in a calm way. Today she wore her usual blue teaching robe. She held a small light pointer in one hand. The class was xenobiology, learning about life on different planets. Students came from many species. There were tall, insect-like beings with shiny shells. There were small furry ones that liked to hide in groups. There were strong four-legged runners from dry worlds. And there were the Rakari. The Rakari were big, cat-like predators. Even the young ones, called cubs, stood taller than most humans. Their fur was dark with stripes. Their claws could cut metal if they wanted. Their teeth were sharp and long. They moved with power and confidence. In class, the Rakari cubs often sat together in the middle rows. They liked to show strength. Sometimes they growled low when they did not agree. Sometimes they flicked their tails hard against the seats. Kor was the loudest of the Rakari cubs. He had bright yellow eyes and a scar on one ear from play-fighting too rough back home. He was only 16 cycles old, but already bigger than many adult aliens. Kor did not like rules. He thought strength should decide everything. More than once, other teachers had left the room shaking after Kor challenged them with a stare or a loud roar. The academy leaders warned him many times. Still, he kept testing limits. Ethan Brooks sat near the back. He was human. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had joined only 100 years ago. Many aliens still saw them as small and weak. Ethan had brown hair, cut short, and calm green eyes. He wore the plain gray academy uniform like everyone else. He did not speak much in class. He listened carefully and wrote notes in a small tablet. Next to him sat Maria Lopez, another human. She had dark hair tied back and liked to smile at jokes. She sometimes whispered questions to Ethan when she did not understand something. Jake Harlan sat 2 rows ahead. He was also human, taller than Ethan, with short blonde hair. Jake talked more. He made friends easily. Today he leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, watching the front. Professor Voss tapped her pointer on the holoscreen. A picture of different alien hands appeared, some with claws, some with tentacles, some with soft pads. Today we talk about cooperation, she said in her gentle voice. Different species must work together to survive in space. One alone is never enough. Kor made a low sound in his throat. It was not quite a growl, but close. He shifted in his seat. His tail hit the floor with a thump. Professor Voss looked at him. Kor, do you have a question? Kor showed his teeth in a half smile. Cooperation is for weak ones, he said. His voice was deep and rough. Strong ones take what they need. No need to ask. A few students laughed nervously. Others looked down at their desks. Professor Voss kept her calm face. In the old days, maybe, she said. But now we have peace treaties. We share ships, stations, and knowledge. Strength without control leads to war. Control makes us all stronger. Kor stood up slowly. His chair scraped back. He was much taller now. His shoulders were wide. His claws clicked against the seat as he flexed his fingers. You talk like prey, he said. Always afraid. Always asking nicely. The room became very quiet. No one moved. The small, furry students pulled their legs up tight. The insect-like ones clicked their mandibles softly in worry. Even Jake sat up straight, eyes narrow. Professor Voss took one small step back. Her ears went flat against her head. "Core," she said, voice softer now, "please sit. We can discuss this after class." Core did not sit. He took one step forward. His yellow eyes locked on her. Then he opened his mouth wide. A deep rolling snarl came out. It started low in his chest and grew louder. The sound filled the whole room. It made the air feel heavy. It was not just anger, it was a challenge. In Rakari culture, that sound meant back down or fight. Gasps came from many seats. One small student let out a tiny cry and hid under the desk. Maria grabbed Ethan's arm without thinking. Jake's hands turned into fists on his lap. Professor Voss froze. Her fur stood up along her arms. She tried to speak, but the words stuck. She raised one hand slowly, palm out, the way she did to calm angry students. It did not work this time. Core's snarl grew louder. His tail lashed side to side. His claws came out fully now, sharp and curved. The other Rakari cubs watched with wide eyes. They did not join in, but they did not stop him either. They waited to see what would happen. Ethan Brooks stood up. He did it slowly, without hurry. His face stayed calm. No anger, no fear, just steady. He looked straight at Core across the rows of seats. The snarl stopped for half a second. Core's ears flicked toward the sound of movement. Ethan spoke one word. His voice was clear and even. It carried through the silent room. "Apologize." Ethan Brooks stood in the back row. His voice had been quiet, but clear. One word. Apologize. It hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Core stopped snarling. His big mouth stayed open for a moment. The deep rumble in his chest died away. His yellow eyes turned fully to Ethan. The cub's ears flicked forward, then back. Confusion showed on his striped face. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Not a teacher, not another Rakari, and certainly not a small, soft-skinned human. The whole room stayed frozen. No one breathed loud. Chairs did not creak. Even the air felt thick and heavy. Professor Lyra Voss held her light pointer so tight that her thin fingers turned white. Her large eyes moved from Core to Ethan and back again. She looked like she wanted to say something, but the words would not come out. Maria Lopez still gripped Ethan's arm. Her fingers pressed hard. She whispered so low, only he could hear, "What are you doing?" Ethan did not answer. He kept his eyes on Core. His face stayed calm. No frown, no smile. Just steady. His hands hung loose at his sides. He did not step forward. He did not raise his arms. He just stood there and waited. Jake Harlan turned in his seat. His mouth opened a little. He looked ready to jump up, but he stayed still. His eyes were wide. He knew humans were not weak, but this was something new. This was not a fight with fists or weapons. This was something else. Core took one slow step toward the front. His claws clicked on the floor. His tail moved side to side, slow and sharp. He lowered his head a bit, so his eyes stayed level with Ethan's. The cub was much taller. From where he stood, Ethan looked small, but Ethan did not move back, even 1 inch. "Why?" Core said. His voice came out rough and low. It was not a growl now. It was a question. "Why do you speak to me like that?" Ethan answered without pause. "Because you snarled at the teacher. That was wrong. You need to say sorry." Core's ears went flat. His lips pulled back to show teeth again, but the snarl did not come. Something stopped it. He looked around the room. The other Rakari cubs sat quiet. Their eyes were big. They waited for Core to do something. Anything. One of them, a smaller female with lighter stripes, shifted in her seat, like she wanted to speak, but she stayed silent. Professor Voss found her voice at last. It was soft and shaky. Core, please, sit down. We can talk later. Core ignored her. His eyes stayed on Ethan. You are human, he said. Small. No claws, no fangs, no strength. Why should I listen to you? Ethan tilted his head just a little. Strength is not always teeth and claws, he said. Sometimes it is knowing what is right and doing it. A few students made small sounds. One insect-like student clicked its mandibles fast. A small furry one covered its face with its paws. They had never heard a human talk this way to a Rakari. Rakari were born to lead hunts. They ruled their homeworlds with power. Humans were new. Humans built ships and talked a lot. But humans did not challenge predators like this. Core's tail stopped moving. He stared at Ethan for a long time. The silence grew longer. Seconds felt like minutes. Everyone waited for the cub to roar again, or to lunge, or to laugh and sit down like it was a joke. But Core did none of those things. His shoulders dropped a little. Not much, just enough to notice. His claws slid back into his paws. The sharp tips disappeared. He looked down at the floor for a moment. Then he looked up at Professor Voss. The teacher stood very still. Her ears were still flat. Her fur stood up along her neck. Core opened his mouth. His voice came out low and rough, almost too quiet to hear. Sorry, Professor Voss. The words fell into the room like stones into still water. Ripples of shock moved through the students. Eyes went wide. Mouths opened. No one spoke. Professor Voss blinked fast, her hand with the pointer lowered slowly. Thank you, Core, she said. Her voice sounded small and surprised. Core did not look at her again. He turned his head back to Ethan. For a moment, the two just looked at each other. The big predator cub and the calm human. No one moved. Then Core sat down. His chair creaked under his weight. He folded his arms across his chest. His tail curled around his legs. He stared straight ahead at the holoscreen. He did not growl. He did not speak. The silence stayed for another few seconds. Then Professor Voss cleared her throat. We will continue, she said. She tapped the screen. The picture of alien hands came back, but her hand shook a little. Her voice was not as steady as before. Students started to breathe again. Chairs shifted. Whispers began. Very quiet. Like they were afraid to break the moment. Maria let go of Ethan's arm. She looked at him with big eyes. How did you do that? She whispered. Ethan sat down slowly. He picked up his tablet like nothing big had happened. He was testing her, he said quietly. Someone had to tell him to stop. Jake turned around fully now. He leaned over the seat. You just made a Rakari cub apologize, he said, to a Valari, in front of everyone, with one word. Ethan shrugged. It was not one word. It was the way it was said. More whispers spread. The insect students clicked to each other. The furry ones peeked out from behind their paws. The other Rakari cubs looked at Core. Core kept his eyes on the screen. His face was hard to read, but his ears stayed low. Not angry, not proud, just different. Professor Voss tried to teach again. She talked about how different species needed to work together. But her words came slow. Then, at Core. Then back to the screen. Ethan wrote notes like always. His hand moved steady across the tablet. He did not smile. He did not look proud. He just listened. But the room felt changed. The air felt lighter. Something had shifted. Something no one expected. A human had spoken. A Rakari had listened. And the whole class had heard it. The lesson went on, but no one would forget what happened next. The word sorry still echoed in everyone's ears. Core sat back down. His big body filled the chair. His arms crossed tight over his chest. His tail curled around one leg like it was trying to hide. He stared at the hollow screen. He did not look at Professor Voss. He did not look at Ethan. He just sat there, quiet. The room stayed silent longer than anyone expected. No one coughed. No one shifted. Even the small fans in the ceiling seemed to stop humming for a moment. It was like the whole academy held its breath. Professor Lyra Voss stood frozen at the front. Her light pointer hung loose in her hand. She blinked many times. Her large dark eyes looked wet, not from tears, from pure surprise. She had taught for many years. She had dealt with angry students before. Ricari Cubs always tested her patience, but never had one backed down like this. Never had one said sorry, and never because a human told him to. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "We will go on," she said at last. Her voice sounded thin, like wind through dry leaves. She tapped the hollow screen. The picture of alien hands came back. She started to talk about how tentacles and claws could work together on tools. But her words came slow. She kept glancing at Core, then at Ethan, then back to the screen. Students began to move a little. Chairs creaked softly. Someone let out a long breath. Whispers started, very low, like secrets. One small furry student leaned toward her friend. "Did you hear that?" He said sorry. The friend nodded fast. Her ears twitched. To a Valari, from a Ricari, because of a human. An insect-like student clicked its mandibles twice. That was their way of showing shock. Another one answered with a soft buzz. Maria Lopez sat next to Ethan. She stared at him like he had grown extra arms. "Ethan," she whispered, "you made him apologize, just like that." Ethan kept writing notes. His pen moved steady. He knew it was wrong, he said quietly. He just needed someone to say it out loud. Jake Harlan turned halfway in his seat. His eyes were big. "Man, that was something else. I thought he was going to jump you, or her, or both." Ethan gave a small shrug. He wasn't going to jump. He was showing off. Testing. Like young ones do. Core heard none of it. Or maybe he did. His ears flicked once when Jake spoke. But he kept looking straight ahead. His face was hard. Not angry, not happy. Just blank. The other Ricari Cubs watched him. The smaller female with light stripes leaned over. She whispered something in their rough language. Core did not answer. He just shook his head once. Short, sharp. Professor Voss tried to keep teaching. She pointed to the screen. "See here. This species uses soft pads to hold delicate things. That is strength too. Not just claws." Her voice grew a little stronger, but she still sounded unsure. The class started to relax. Students took notes again. Someone opened a water bottle. The small sound seemed loud in the quiet room. Then Core moved, slow. He uncrossed his arms. He leaned forward. His elbows rested on the desk. His big paws opened flat. Claws stayed in. He looked down at his own hands, like he was seeing them for the first time. No one spoke to him. Not yet. Ethan finished a line of notes. He looked up. His green eyes met Core's for half a second. Core looked away fast, back to the screen. Maria noticed. She nudged Ethan. "He looked at you." Ethan nodded once. "Yeah." The lesson went on. Professor Voss talked about food chains on different worlds, how predators and prey learned to share space, how balance kept everyone alive. Her words felt different now, like they meant more. Near the end, she stopped. She looked around the room. "Any questions?" Silence. A tiny student with big round eyes. "Professor, is it always like that? One says sorry and everything stops?" Professor Voss smiled. Small, shaky. "Not always. But sometimes, yes, words can be strong too." The bell chimed. Soft, clear. Class was over. Students stood up slow. They gathered their things, but no one rushed. They kept looking at Core, at Ethan, at the front. Core stayed seated longer than the others. He watched the hollow screen go dark. Then he stood, tall, slow. He walked toward the door. His steps were heavy, but not angry. As he passed Ethan's row, he slowed, just for a moment. He did not turn his head. He did not speak. But his tail flicked once, not hard, not mean, just different. Ethan watched him go. Maria stood up. She put her tablet in her bag. "That was crazy," she said. "The whole room went dead quiet when you said it." Jake joined them. He grinned big. It was like someone hit pause on the galaxy. I swear the lights dimmed. Ethan smiled a little. First time since it happened. It wasn't me. It was him. He chose to stop. They walked out into the hall. Bright lights. Wide windows. Students from other classes moved around. Voices filled the air again. But in their group, it felt different. Like they had seen something no one else had. Behind them, Core walked alone. His head was low. His shoulders not as wide as before. He did not growl at anyone. He did not push past smaller students. He just walked. One of the other Rakari cubs caught up, the female with light stripes. She said something quiet. Core answered short. Then they kept walking. Professor Voss stayed in the room. She turned off the hollow screen. She sat on the edge of her desk. Her long ears drooped. She looked tired, but also calm. For the first time in a long time. She thought about the human in the back row. The one who did not shout, did not threaten, just said one word. And everything changed. Outside, the moon's sun shone bright. Ships moved slow in the sky. Life went on. But inside the academy, something had shifted. A line had been crossed. Not with claws, not with roars, with calm, with expectation, with one simple word. And the silence that followed was louder than any snarl. The day was not over, but the moment would stay, forever. The bell had rung, but the echo of Core's quiet sorry still filled the halls. Students walked out of the lecture room in slow groups. Their voices stayed low. No one shouted or laughed loud like usual. They looked back at the door. Some pointed with small gestures toward Ethan. Others glanced at Core as he walked ahead alone. Ethan, Maria, and Jake stepped into the wide corridor. Bright lights ran along the ceiling. Windows showed the moon's rocky surface and far stars. Ships moved like slow insects in the black sky. Maria walked close to Ethan. She kept looking at his face. "You really did that," she said. One word, and he listened. Ethan put his tablet in his bag. He was ready to listen, he said. He just needed someone to point it out. Jake laughed once, short and surprised. "Point it out? You ordered a Rakari cub like he was a kid who took the last cookie, and he took it." They turned a corner. A group of small furry ones stopped talking when they saw Ethan. Their big eyes followed him. One whispered to another. The words were too soft to hear. Word spread fast in the academy. By the time they reached the open courtyard, groups were already talking about it. A tall insect student clicked to his friend. The human made Core say sorry. No fight, no roar, just words. In the courtyard, benches sat under fake trees that glowed soft blue. Students ate snacks or studied. Ethan found an empty bench. He sat. Maria and Jake sat too. Core did not come to the courtyard. He walked straight to the dorm wing. His steps were heavy. His head stayed low. The female Rakari cub with light stripes followed a few steps behind. She tried to talk to him. Core shook his head. He went inside alone. Inside the main hall, Professor Lyra Voss stayed at her desk for a long time. She looked at the empty seats. Her fur lay flat now. She felt something new. Not fear, not anger, relief, and wonder. She stood up slow. She walked to the door. In the hall, she met another teacher, an older insect being with shiny green shell. "Did you hear?" she asked. The insect clicked once. "Yes, the whole wing is talking." A human stopped a Ricari challenge, with calm, no violence. Professor Voss nodded. "I thought he would fight, or run, but he just stood and spoke." The insect tilted his head. "Humans are strange. They look weak, but their minds are strong." Professor Voss thought about that. She had always seen humans as clever, good with machines, good with words. But this was different. This was authority. Quiet, sure. Like a parent who knows the child will obey. Later that day, classes ended. The sun on the moon started to set. Orange light came through the windows. Students went to the dining hall. Long tables. Different foods for different species. Meat for predators. Plants for others. Soft gels for the insect ones. Kor sat at the end of the Ricari table. He ate slow. His claws clicked on the plate. The other cubs sat near him. They talked low. About home, about hunts, but not about class. Not yet. Ethan sat with Maria and Jake at the human section. They had simple food. Bread, soup, fruit. Jake kept looking over at Kor. "Think he'll come talk?" Jake asked. Ethan shook his head. "Not yet. Give him time." Maria ate a piece of fruit. "What if the elders hear? The Ricari leaders?" Ethan looked up. "They will. News travels fast here." He was right. In the elder wing, far from the student halls, a Ricari adult stood tall. His fur was darker. His scars were many. He was called Ren. He led the Ricari students. He listened as a young assistant told the story. The assistant spoke fast. About the snarl, about the human, about the apology. Ren's tail moved slow. His voice was deep like thunder far away. "Yes," the assistant said. "No threat, no weapon, just apologize." And Kor did it. Ren thought for a long time. "Bring Kor to me, after evening meal." Word reached Kor fast. One of his friends told him. Kor's ears went flat. He finished his food. He stood. He walked to the elder wing. The door to Ren's room opened. Kor stepped inside. The room was dark. Only one light. Ren sat on a low platform. His yellow eyes glowed. "Sit," Ren said. Kor sat. His tail curled tight. "Tell me," Ren said. Kor looked at the floor. "I snarled at Professor Voss. She corrected me. I felt small. I challenged her." Ren waited. Then the human spoke. "Ethan Brooks," he said, "apologize. Calm, no anger. Like pack leader when young ones fight too much." Ren's ears flicked. "And you did?" Kor nodded slow. "I did. It felt right, like I had to." Ren leaned forward. Why? Kor thought. Because he did not yell. He did not show teeth. He just expected me to do it, and I wanted to. Ren stayed quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Humans are new. We thought them prey, soft. But this is different." Kor looked up. He did not need to fight. That scared me more than claws. Ren nodded once. "Go back. Think on it. We will talk more." Kor left. He walked back slow. In the halls, students watched him. No one spoke to him, but eyes followed. Back in the dining hall, Ethan finished eating. He stood. "I am going to the library," he said. Maria smiled. "Want company?" "Not this time," Ethan said. "Thanks." He walked alone. The library was quiet. Tall shelves, screens with books from many worlds. He found a corner. He sat. He opened his tablet, but he did not read. He thought. Jake and Maria stayed in the courtyard. They talked. "Think this changes things?" Maria asked. Jake nodded. "Yeah. Predators see us different now. Prey feels safer. Everyone thinks twice." In the dorms later, Core lay on his bed. He stared at the ceiling. His claws opened and closed slow. He remembered Ethan's face. Calm, steady, no fear. He sat up. He walked out, down the hall, past doors, to the human wing. He stopped outside Ethan's door. He raised one paw, hesitated, then knocked, soft. The door opened. Ethan stood there, no surprise on his face. Core looked down. His voice came low. "Why did you not fight?" Ethan leaned on the doorframe. "Because fighting was not needed. You already knew what you did was wrong." Core's ears flicked. "You spoke like someone in charge." Ethan gave a small smile. "Sometimes being in charge is just expecting people to be better." Core looked at him for a long time. Then he nodded once. "Thank you." He walked away. Ethan closed the door. He sat on his bed. He felt tired, but good. Outside, the moon turned dark. Stars shone bright. The academy slept. But something had changed. A seed was planted. Respect, not from fear, from understanding. And it would grow. Weeks passed after that day in the lecture room. The Galactic Unity Academy looked the same on the outside. Ships came and went. Students walked the halls. Classes ran on time. But inside, something felt different, like a quiet wind had changed direction. Ricari cubs no longer growled loud in class. They sat straighter. Their tails stayed still more often. When a teacher asked a question, they raised a paw instead of interrupting. Core led the change without saying much. He did not boast. He did not explain. He just did things different. The other cubs watched him. They copied him. Slowly, one by one. Professor Lyra Voss noticed first. In her next xenobiology class, she asked about food chains again. Core listened. He took notes with a small stylus made for big paws. When she finished, he raised his paw. "Professor," he said in a low voice, "on my world we hunt in packs, but we share the kill. Is that cooperation too?" Her ears lifted high. "Yes, Core, that is exactly it. Sharing makes the pack strong." Core nodded once. He wrote it down. No growl, no challenge, just learning. The other students saw it too. Small furry ones stopped hiding under desks when Ricari spoke. Insect students clicked softer, calmer sounds. Even the prey species sat closer to the predator tables in the dining hall. One afternoon, Professor Voss called Ethan to her office. The room was small and warm. Plants grew in pots along the walls. Soft light came from a ceiling panel. She sat behind her desk. Ethan stood polite. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was clear now, not shaky like before. "I was afraid that day. I thought it would end in blood. But you stopped it, with calm, with one word." Ethan looked at the plants. He was young. He needed rules. Someone had to give them. Professor Voss tilted her head. "Humans do that often? Speak calm when others roar." Ethan thought for a moment. "Sometimes. We learn it young. Parents say stop or say sorry. They expect you to listen. Not because they hit, but because they mean it." The professor's eyes grew wide. Expectation, not force. That is new to many of us. Ethan gave a small nod. It works better sometimes. Less broken things. She smiled. Her fur smoothed down. "You changed more than one class, Ethan. You changed how we see each other." He left her office quiet. In the hall, students nodded to him. Not big bows, just small signs of respect. A furry one waved. An insect clicked hello. Even a few Ricari looked his way without narrowing eyes. Days later, a group project came up. Xenobiology teams had to build a model of a shared space station. Different species working together. Ethan, Maria, Jake, Core, and 2 other students got put in one group. They met in a workroom. Tables, tools, screens. At first, quiet. Cor sat at one end, Ethan at the other. Maria spoke first. We need a central hub for all species. Jake added, big doors, strong walls, places to rest. Cor looked up. And hunting grounds? No, wait, training areas for practice. The others nodded. They started to draw plans. Cor worked slow, careful. He used his claws to cut small pieces of material. But he did not scratch the table. He kept them in when not needed. At one point, a small argument started. One student wanted more lights. Another wanted less. Voices rose. Cor's tail flicked once. Then he stopped. He looked at Ethan. Ethan met his eyes. Calm, steady. Cor took a breath. We vote, he said. Majority decides. The group looked surprised. Then they agreed. They voted. Lights stayed medium. After the meeting, students left one by one. Cor stayed. He helped Ethan clean the tools. When they were alone, Cor spoke. I was wrong that day. To snarl at her. Ethan put away a cutter. You fixed it. Cor looked at his paws. You did not laugh at me, or fear me. You just expected better. Ethan closed the box. Everyone can be better, if someone shows them how. Cor nodded slow. I will remember that. They walked out together. Not friends yet, but not enemies. Something in between. Respect. The project finished strong. Their model won high marks. Professor Voss showed it to other classes. See this, she said. This is what happens when we listen, when we expect the best from each other. Word spread beyond the academy. Rakari elders heard more stories. They called meetings. They talked about humans, not as weak newcomers, but as ones with quiet strength, ones who could lead without claws. Other species listened too. Prey ones felt safer. Predators thought deeper. The fragile peace in the galaxy felt a little stronger. One evening, Ethan walked the outer path around the academy. Stars filled the sky. The moon's air was cool and clean. Cor came up behind him. Slow steps. No surprise attack. Just walking. They stood side by side, looking at the stars. Cor spoke first. Thank you for that day. Ethan looked at him. You did the hard part. You said sorry. Cor's tail moved gentle. I learned from you. They stood quiet for a while. Then Cor said, if trouble comes again, I will stand with you. Ethan smiled small. And I with you. They walked back inside, side by side. Big predator, small human, different, but together. In the halls, students saw them. Whispers started again. Good ones. The academy changed. Not fast, not loud, but real. When a human said apologize, silence followed. Not from threat, from respect. From the weight of a calm voice that expected better. And the galaxy listened. Because sometimes true strength has no claws, no fangs, no roar. It has patience, it has will, it has the courage to demand more from others and from yourself. And when that happens, everything goes silent, not in terror, but in awe.